the issue of the man, right? What was the man? The man is what came in the desert for the food, right?
Oh.
You're eating over there matzah, right, from last year. That's very good, Baruch Hashem, very good, very healthy. But over there, they didn't have matzot. They didn't have right. They had matzot when they came out. Once they left, so there was nothing left to eat anymore. You know, I mean, the truth is they had livestock, animals. They had everything. They were very wealthy. But the problem was that they didn't really have any bread per se. You know, even though they could have probably bought it or whatever. You know, they could have bought it or they could have baked it or whatever. But they were kind of like, you know, on the move all the time, on the move. So they needed something portable, whatever. So they asked for the bread. You know, so Kadosh Baruch Hu said, you know what, I'm going to give you this man, right? So what was this man? The man was basically, it came down like rain, you know, like frost coming down, the snow came down, it landed on the ground, all right? It piled up, and they would just come and collect it. Basically, that's what it was, you know.
God made it.
They would collect it, take it home, right? And they would do they had to do with it, right? Whatever they had to do. Some people, you know, the truth is, right, that there's different levels in this man. What does that mean? One level is that they had to actually prepare the man, you know, to cook it, whatever, to make some pancakes, waffles, you know, stuff like this. Okay, that we understand. They had to prepare it. They had to cook it. So it was like some kind of like a flour kind of thing, where you just like you make it with, you know, you make something from it. But the truth is, the Chazal say, right, that the ones who were more fortunate, the more fortunate ones, they didn't have to do anything to it. They just ate it like the way it was. What does that mean? They would just think, right, what they wanted to have a taste of, you know, whether it's Dunkin' Donuts or, you know, hamburgers or steaks, right, whatever it is. Any taste that they wanted, they got. Can you imagine? That's what it was, right? And they didn't have to say it, right? They didn't have to. It wasn't like, you know, you go to a restaurant, at least you have to tell the waitress, right, what you want. You know, you have to order it, right? But here, it's just what you think, you know, just talk. Yeah, that's it. You think it, you got it. It's an amazing thing, right? That's the way it was. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? So anything you think, you get. That's the way it was. For the fortunate ones, right? Why some were more fortunate than the others? Because you know why? Because some of them were tzaddikim than the other, more righteous than the other, right? The ones who were more righteous, they got everything prepared. You know, like Gan Eden, you know, Garden of Eden. Everything just comes, ready-made. Don't have to ask for anything. No need to add salt or pepper. You know, just take it and eat it. You get the taste that you want, anything you want. Anything's on the menu, right? Amazing kind of thing this was. The people who were less righteous, who were like sinners more, you know, so they had to work for it a little bit harder. To cook it, you know, whatever, to sift it first, cook it, knead the dough and cook it and everything, and fry, bake, whatever it is. All these things, right? So that's the way the man was. That's okay. It's a very interesting thing. It's a very interesting phenomenon, this whole thing, right? It was actually a very amazing miracle. By the way, they say that this thing, the man, what happened was that when the man started to come for the Jews, the Goyim were looking, you know, at this phenomenon. They also saw that because they were watching what's going on. You know what I mean? They were tracking them. They had spies over there. They had people, you know, who were watching them, whatever. So they were tracking what's going on. So once they saw this thing, they were like amazed. You know, they said, "My God, what the heck is this? You know, this is something unbelievable." So they thought that you know, this would actually be like a non-starter. What does that mean? That it really wouldn't work out. You know, they wouldn't get the nutrition that they needed and whatever. They were trying to mock it. You know, there was like a mockery, make a mockery out of it. But the truth is, once they saw that they were actually doing very well with that thing, so what happened was that they actually tasted it themselves. How did they taste it? They say, right, that what used to happen was like this, that the man that would be left over from the Jews who didn't eat, you know, there was always leftovers. You know how it is, right? Always, every home you have leftovers, right?
Each one had their own taste. It wasn't the taste that the guy, what that person wanted when the second guy got it.
Right, that's the fortunate ones, right? But now look what happens, right? That the leftovers will melt because the sun will melt it. You know? They were in a desert. We're talking about big heat over there. You know what I mean? So the sun would melt it down. It would become like a liquid kind of thing, you know, paste, and it would start flowing. You know, make a stream. You know, that's what the Midrash says. So what happened was that this stream actually got into the water supply as well, and then they would come with the animals, right? You know, like the deer, and you know the animals that were in the wilderness there. They would drink that, eat that stuff. And then the Goyim, which would slaughter those animals and get the taste of the man, and they would say, "Wow, you know, this is amazing! Whoa, you know, I can't imagine, right? What kind of marinade this is, right? It marinates the meat so well, It gives it a different taste altogether. So they themselves were flabbergasted from this thing, right? So this phenomenon became like a worldwide, knowledge. Everybody knew about it. Everybody knew what was going on there. So they knew that the Jews were living on miracles. Okay, very nice, very good. There's also some other interesting things, right, which are said about the man, which is that what? The truth is that there was also a test regarding this. What does that mean? The test was, okay, I'm going to give you the bread for free. It's going to come down from the sky, right? But you have to follow instructions, right? On condition you follow instructions. What were the instructions, right? The instructions were, don't leave anything over. Eat everything. Don't leave anything over. Number one. Number two, don't gather the man on Shabbat, right? Because it's not going to come. There's not going to be any man on Shabbat. Shabbat is a day of rest, right? So therefore, what happened was, right, that just the opposite, right? That Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Jews, listen, don't go and gather the man on Shabbat. So what they did was, right, some wise guys, these wise guys, I'm talking about. There's always these wise guys, right? They went to gather man on Shabbat as well. They broke Shabbat.
Question. Question, Shabbat.
Yeah.
The day of Shabbat.
Yeah.
The day it is. Is it always Friday night? And how do they know that it's Friday night?
Well, this is like a tradition that's been going on for, since the world was created, right?
Yeah, was it from God that says it's going to be on a Friday?
I want to tell you something really funny. Even the Goyim, right, where we lived, me and David, over there, what do they call Saturday over there in Georgian?
Day of rest?
What do they call the day Saturday? Shabbati. It's called Shabbat. Can you imagine? In the Georgian language, the Goyim call it also Shabbat.
Absolutely.
You understand? So even they know that it's Shabbat. It's not really a big.
No, there weren't a lot of Jews. It was predominantly.
Yeah, it's predominantly a Christian country. Yeah, but you see, that's the way it is. That everybody knows this. I mean, there's no big secret over here.
Christians will say, well, how do you know it's on a Friday, like Saturday, and not Sunday?
Well, it looks like the Georgians, they know. If the Georgians know, everybody else knows also, because the Georgians are not the smartest people in the world. Not exactly. If they know.
There's no Black Sabbath news.
If you want to know, by the way, I want to tell you something really interesting. Since you mentioned this thing, right, about Black Sabbath, this concept of Black Sabbath is actually a real concept. It's not something just some kind of a game.
The devil.
Right, it's something devilish there. So, what is the devilish thing about this Black Sabbath business? You really want? Are you interested in knowing what this is? It's actually brought down in the Chazal, right? The sages bring this down.
Kabbalah.
They say, right, the Kabbalah is brought down. Yes. It's Mekubalim bring it down. What it means is like this, that basically, what happens is that a person on Shabbat, he's supposed to come home from, go to synagogue, pray, come home happy, and gleaming with joy, and eat the meal, and, make kiddush, and, sing songs. Make his wife happy, say Divrei Torah, everything, right? Whatever, all these things. So they say that because the Jews are this way on Shabbat, so what happens is that the other side, the Sitra Achra, the side of Satan, what happens is that what they do is because the day of Shabbat for them is just the opposite of what it is for us. In other words, for us, it's a total success. It's a total victory. For them, it's a total loss. Like junkyard. You understand? What does that mean? That instead of being happy and gleeful and joyful like we are on Shabbat, what they do is they sit, on a table with a dark room, and cry, they cry. Why? What's the reason why they cry? Because for them, it's like darkness at that night. Because, for us, it's light. It's always the opposite, you understand? It's just the opposite of what it is for them, it is for us. So therefore, right, what happens is that when you, as a Jew, celebrate Shabbat the proper way, so the other side, the side of Satan, is crying on that. They're crying. You understand?
You think Tony Iommi knows about
Okay, I don't know about Tony, but maybe Ozzy knows. Okay, so anyway, it doesn't make any difference. Whatever. But the point is, right, that this is actually this is why they gave this name, because you understand, it's something from the occult. It's like a occult. They know about that.
Shabbat.
Right. That's what it means. That for them, you understand. For us, it's totally light and joy, and for them, it's total darkness and crying. You understand?
So
that's what it is.
If we want to know the right day that it is, we just go ask Satan.
No, he's questioning, was it arbitrarily picked?
Yeah.
Today.
by the Jews, because it could have been on a Monday.
No, it wasn't arbitrarily picked because what happened was that God picked it. He created the world in 6 days and 7th day he rested. So he was the one who picked
when
it.
he started to do the world.
Because we have a tradition about that. You know how it is, right? From generation to generation, we pass it down. But anyway, right? What happens is like this. Interesting.
So it's not important whether it was picked on the It's not important whether it's chronologically correct from Monday.
No, it is important because we have to keep the right day. If you're keeping the wrong day, you're missing the whole point. You know what I mean? You can't make Friday or Thursday into Shabbat. Shabbat is Shabbat. You know what I mean? That's the way it is.
But who deemed it? Was it a tradition?
Hashem created the world. So that's how it is.
Was it a tradition that started that today should be a Monday and tomorrow a Tuesday?
Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world. He created the world in 6 days. 7th day he rested, and he told Adam Arishon, the first man that he created, to do the same thing. So that's the way it was. And from there, right, the tradition went on from generation to generation. Right? That's the way it is. Yes.
Do it.
Do you think that the Goyim, by spite, turned their Saturday into a Sunday?
Well, the truth is, that
because they're supposed to. Their Saturday is a Sunday.
Right, but actually there's a basis for that in the Torah as well. What they did, you know why? But it's really the truth is there's a basis, but it's not totally correct. It's also blemished what they do.
Well,
Why is it blemished? Because the Talmud says, right, that a goy who rests on Shabbat is chayav mitah, it's liable to death. You understand? He's not allowed to rest on Shabbat because this is something that was given only to the Jews. It's a private club for the Jewish people between God and Jewish people. You understand?
Yes,
that's the idea.
Some believe. Hold on. Some believe. Okay. Because they believe in Yahweh. They say, right. So some believe that Shabbat is Shabbat. It's the same as it's on Friday, and they celebrate that.
So anyway, okay, whatever. They can believe whatever they want,
Are they in trouble?
They can believe whatever they want, but what I can tell you is like this, right? The goy who does this is chayav mitah, liable to death. Now, the truth is, right, that the Talmud says something further than that, though. Not only the goy is not allowed to rest on Shabbat, he's not allowed to rest on any day of the week. Understand?
That's slavery.
Right? So what does that mean? It doesn't mean they have to go to work, by the way. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about going to work, going to the job. We're not talking about that. We're talking about they're not allowed to rest from the labors that we rest from as Jews. You understand? We don't start a fire, we don't drive a car, all these things, right? These labors that we don't do, they're not allowed to rest from these things.
They don't rest from it, but what they do on a Sunday is after they come back from church, for a lot of them in the neighborhood, it's embarrassing to mow the lawn or, create a ruckus on that day.
Right, I understand you, but
they're trying to take off from the rest of the week.
But anyway, that also makes it into a sin what they do. You understand? So basically,
the Pope did that, though.
Shabbat will be a sin for them, and Sunday's also a sin. So what can I tell you?
It was the Pope that did that, but he changed the Sabbath day. So
there's enough room in hell for him too. Don't believe me. There's enough room for him also. He'll be also there. Don't worry. There's enough room in hell for all the popes. Don't worry. There's no lack of room over there.
This one's going to hell.
Okay.
They all are. He's going to resign. They all are.
Don't worry.
Listen, it's about one thing, and I don't mean to. I'll take 5 seconds. It's about one thing. The Torah wasn't good enough. Whether it's them or Islam. They wanted a new God. They wanted to worship something, God in a different way. So they came up with their own thing. They did away with the 613 mitzvot because they didn't want to follow it. They were too lazy or whatever. And they came up with their own interpretation of,
There's enough room for all of them, David, over there in Gainam. Don't worry. There's enough room for all of them.
Yeah, but they're going to have their own heaven also.
No, they were not given. They were not given the law to keep.
Just hell, no heaven.
But according to Mel Gibson, we're the ones that are not going to make it.
Okay, if you believe in him, what can I tell you?
No, God forbid, I don't believe in him, but I want you to know that you know very well.
Yeah.
The Christians believe they're the chosen, and we're going to be outcast.
Right, but we're not here to discuss.
And the Muslims call all of us.
We're not here to discuss the Goyish religions. We're not here to discuss that, guys.
But what I want is for you to be aware what they think of us.
I'm very well aware of it, but I don't care about it. That's the problem. The problem is you care about it. Why should you care?
No, I don't care. I'm just bringing it up.
Right, but if you don't care, you shouldn't bring it up either.
Right.
So
you gotta know who your enemies are.
We know who they are. Don't worry. So you got the idea, right? Okay. So right, don't give it too much importance. That's the whole idea. So anyway, coming back to reality. Let's get back to reality, right?
No, boy.
So, We see you there.
The best rabbi in the world.
Alabai. Okay, so now comes, right, and so we described a little bit of the man, right, how it worked and everything. So what was the test, as we said, right, the test for the man was that don't gather on Shabbat. So what happened was that Datan and Abiram went and gathered on Shabbat, as we said, right? So they say, by the way, the Chazal, that this is what causes all the problems. You know, when the Jews don't keep Shabbat, all the problems come from there. It says in the Midrash, if the Jews would keep even one Shabbat only, just one Shabbat, right away Mashiach will come.
I remember that, yeah.
Right away when Mashiach will come. Can you imagine? Just one Shabbat.
Yeah.
Not two, not three, just one Yasha.
Yeah, but all Jews.
Yeah, all Jews, just one. You understand?
That's like revolting against Washington, D.C.
So-
if everybody got
Never gonna be happen like that. Never.
It's never going
You want to bet? You want to bet? I'll bet you, Yasha.
Maybe I don't want to bet. I hope not.
I'm going to bet you.
Rabbi, why
Okay.
does the Torah always ask us of the impossible?
Why is that, by the way, you should know? Why is it impossible? It's impossible not to go to 47th Street on Shabbat? It's not. I don't say. Why is it so impossible?
No, it's just...
Why is it so impossible?
Because 99% of Jews are secular. Okay?
Not Jews.
Okay.
So for all the Jews to come together and keep
Right.
that one Shabbat, even though the Torah is asking for us to keep only that one Shabbat,
Right.
just once, we haven't done it.
He's gonna make
Right.
it happen, man.
Right, guarantee you, David, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
It has to happen.
Right.
Either it'll happen in a very pleasant way or in a very, just the opposite, right?
Violent way.
I don't want to tell you, right? I don't want to say.
That's only if Trump makes it into a law.
It's
He
only
can't
on
even
the
pass his
other
own laws.
side.
Forget about our
It's only
laws.
on
He
the
can't even
other
get his
side.
own laws passed.
It's only on the dark side.
Okay, so anyway, Rabotai, so what we're saying is like this, right? If they would keep only one Shabbat, so the test of the man was to keep Shabbat also, to see if they would keep Shabbat. And, there was a failure there because they went out to gather.
Why didn't they hang that
We talked
number
about
on
this,
the
right?
spot when they gather them up? On the spot they should hang them.
You need, in order to punish somebody to death, you need witnesses and warning, there's all kinds of rules.
If they had done that,
You can't just kill somebody like that,
they will not play
just
games.
because you're mad,
Mad, you will not play
Right?
games anymore.
See?
As we already mentioned, right, Nissim, we already mentioned.
He's a privileged guy.
The Talmud says, right, in Masechet Sanhedrin, I want to tell you how merciful the Jewish religion is. Talmud says in Masechet Sanhedrin that a bet din, right, a high court that kills one person every 70 years is considered to be a deadly bet din. What does that mean? They kill too often. You understand? That too often. That's what. Why? Why too often? Why? What's the reason why? Because the way the Jewish religion looks at death penalty is, yes, in theory we have one, but in practice, don't use it too much.
No stoning.
Right? Don't use it too much.
Only on your wife.
You're right.
Blasphemy.
So said Rabbi Akiva, right, regarding this. You know what he said? He said that if I was there in the high court, nobody would ever be killed. Nobody would ever be killed. Nobody would ever be executed.
But is it up to him? It's up to the
Is that
Torah.
why there's no death penalty?
No, but it's up to the judges.
Ah, I see.
Understand? The judges are the ones who decide. So how did it work? There were 70 judges, right? And when according to the majority, they took a vote, and they would first deliberate the case. You know what I mean? Deliberation, back and forth. Why yes? Why no? Why should we kill him? Why shouldn't we kill him? Why is he innocent? Why is he guilty? Ba 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 ba. Okay, fine. So in the end, they would take a vote. Ayes and nays, right? Ayes, nays, right? Sounds familiar? Okay. So that's the way it was.
First, are you guilty, and,
So-
then do you get the death penalty?
So what does that mean? Rabbi Akiva says, I would always get them off. What does that mean? Nobody would ever be die. How is he going to get them off? He's only one. He's only one guy on the court. He's not the majority. What? Rabbi Akiva is the majority? So what's the point? You know what the point was? What he meant to say was, I know all the loopholes. I know all the tricks in law that I can convince all of them, that this person is not liable to death. Because we haven't succeeded technically to prove the guilt.
All the maxims.
There's a reasonable doubt, right? As they say, right? There's a reasonable source of doubt there, so therefore we can't kill the guy. Rabbi Akiva, that's what he says. So you see, this is the spirit of Judaism. The spirit of Judaism is we're not big on killing people. We're not big on that. Even a person who deserves it.
The world is big on killing us.
Okay. So why is that, by the way? Why? You know why that is? Because we prefer that God should punish them. We prefer that God should do it. If he's really guilty, we're not really sure. We didn't see what happened over there. We weren't there ourselves. We have two witnesses, that came forward and are testifying. Fine. But maybe those two witnesses are lying. Maybe they're exaggerating. Maybe this, maybe that, all kinds of stuff, Maybe the guy, has bad vision. He has poor vision. He didn't see what really happened there. Maybe he assumed, there was assumption there. He didn't really see what he just, he's like making it up a little bit, like adding some color to the story, Oh yeah, it was like this, and he stabbed him and blah, blah, blah. He didn't really see all that. But he just figment of his imagination. That's what it, what I'm saying? So therefore the Jewish religion tells us, what? Don't go around killing people. That's not your job. You know what? Who really knows if the person is guilty? God knows, right? So if he wants to kill him, he'll kill him. What's it to you? You know what I mean? You would try to get him off. You know what I mean? Try to get the guy off. If Hashem deems him guilty, he will kill him. That's the way it is. For us, this is the way it works. So getting back to what we said, right? This is the way why we're not looking, to kill people. The truth is, right? How many people were really killed for desecrating Shabbat in the whole time that they were in the Midbar? Right? Only one person was killed for that. That was the only person, because they wanted to make an example out of him. He did something really, really wrong, and he himself wanted to be killed, by the way, for that. That was the whole thing, right? This guy, he did it on purpose in order he should be killed.
Then you should not kill him.
You understand? Why did he do that? You know why? Because he wanted to demonstrate the law. He wanted to. Can you imagine? This was his whole.
Even with that one incident, the Jews don't want it on their hands. That's why.
Right, but in that case, they had no choice. They had to do it because there was no defense for the guy. There was no defense for him. Okay, so what can you do? But anyway, right? Okay, now, right, regarding testing on Shabbat, okay, fine, we got the testing part. But, all this is very nice. We heard all the descriptions about man. There's a lot more descriptions also that we didn't say. There's no reason to say all of them. But you know what? That's not the bottom line. The bottom line of the man is something much deeper, actually. The real element, the deep depths and the moral element over here that's trying to tell you. What is this business of God, sending rain down, as bread? What is this business? For what purpose was this done? I mean, why couldn't they do it in a more like a natural way? Why did it have to be such a miracle like that? You know what I mean? Why make it in this manner like that? So you know what the answer is? The answer lies in one of the passages in the Torah, right? What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu tell to Moshe Rabbeinu? What he tells him? He says, I want you to take one jar of this man, put it in the jar, nice big jar, and lock it up, seal it, and put it away for storage, for safekeeping, right? This is going to be around for all generations to show the Jews, this man, that they should never lose sight of what it was and that it was real, that it was something not some imagination or some kind of hoax, whatever. So why did Hashem tell Moshe Rabbeinu to do this? You know why? So the answer lies in what happened in the future, right? Says the Chazal, what happened was that there was a generation of Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu was the Navi. You know who he was, right? He was a prophet that was around at the time of the destruction of Bet HaMikdash. Yirmiyahu. When was the Bet HaMikdash destroyed? 410 years after it was built. Shlomo HaMelech built the Bet HaMikdash. It was destroyed 410 years later. Who was the prophet at that time? Yirmiyahu. Chazal say, by the way, that Yirmiyahu was a Gilgul of Shlomo HaMelech. He was the reincarnation of Shlomo HaMelech. Why did he bring him back for the destruction of Bet HaMikdash, to witness that? He witnessed the building and also destruction. Why? Because he was the one who caused destruction by sinning. So therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu brought him back to show him, you see what you caused? Now you're going to see the destruction too. You know what I mean?
Rabbi,
you got to see that too.
Does a Gilgul know that he's a Gilgul?
In general, we don't know, right? But there are some times when it's revealed by prophets, by all kinds of people who are very spiritual, Kabbalists, things like this, whatever. Real Kabbalists, right? Not the fake ones we have today,
so
right? Not like those guys.
Back,
those guys are businessmen. That's something else. Right?
If I come back in somebody else's body, I won't know.
You won't know unless somebody tells you, right?
We're all reincarnation.
So what happened was, right, that sends Yirmiyahu Navi what he did was like this, right? The people, he in his generation, the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. But before this happened, what happened was that they made one last ditch effort to save the country. Before this happened. So what did they do? There was actually a righteous king, right? That was at that time the king of Judah, right? His name was Yoshiyahu. So what he did, this guy, he brought back the 10 tribes that were already in exile in Babel, in Babylon, in Persia, wherever they were, in all these nations. He brought them back, and he brought back the whole nation. The ones that were not lost, some of them got lost, but the ones who did not get lost, he brought them back. He rebuilt the nation, and Yoshiyahu was king over all of them. That's what it says, right, in the Gemara, Masechet Megillah. And what happened was like this, right, that they tried to rebuild the country, and this was a righteous king. But in the end, it didn't work, because Yoshiyahu was killed, he died, right? And then came the bad kings, the Menashe, right, and all these wicked kings, Tzidkiyahu, right, and they destroyed everything, whatever was left over, right, everything got destroyed. So what happened was like this, right, that Yirmiyahu, he told the Jews to do tshuva. He said, repent, you've sinned greatly, too much idolatry, They had in those days the big problem was idolatry, Everybody was going to church, this church, that church, Episcopalian, this, all kinds of stuff, Catholic, Roman Catholic, right? Yeah, in those times idolatry was very, very strong, much stronger than it is today, It was much stronger in those days than it is today. What does that mean? The desire for idolatry was very great, There was a big lust for that. The lust was very great.
Why? When there's one God? Why?
Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what happened was that he made a big Yetzer Hara. He can make the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. So in those days, the evil inclination was mainly on idolatry. It gave people a lot of comfort, to do idolatry. Like, that you get like very comforted, very, you feel very safe, like a safety kind of thing, very comfort zone, you have a comfort zone. It gave that feeling, so people had a very big reliance on that in those days. That's what happened, right? So what happened was that Yirmiyahu now comes to the Jews. He tells them, says, the reason why, let's face it, the reason why you don't keep the Torah, you know why it is, right? Because you don't study Torah. You're not studying Torah. What you're doing is, going after money all the time, running after money, 47th Street, Wall Street, this, Amazon, Bitcoins, this, all kinds of stuff, Everybody was on nonsense, right? Whatever it is. He told them, sit and learn Torah. Forget about this stuff. Why are you so obsessed with money? So what they asked him, right? They said, listen. They said, the Rabbi, they told him, Rabbi Yirmiyahu, but one thing we want to ask you, how are we going to make a living? Who's going to give us a profit? Who's going to give us a salary? So what did Yirmiyahu do? You know what he did? He took out that jar of man, right? That Moshe Rabbeinu sealed up. He brought it out and showed them. He says, this is what happens to people who do the will of God. You get rained on from Shemaim, from the heavens, and you get your Parnassa from there. What do you think? What? Hashem can't give you Parnassa? You have to go out and, make a living like that, run around, run here, run there, Manhattan, downtown, uptown, midtown, this, that, China, Hong Kong, this, all kinds of, who needs all that? You have to go to all these places to get Parnassa? Is that really true? No. It's right here. The man is right here. Look. Right here. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu brought for the Jewish people. Hashem brought for the Jewish people. So you see from there, right, that one thing. That the main lesson, the moral lesson of the man is what? That, if you really do the will of God, you don't have to do anything for a living. Hashem will support you. What were they doing for a living, those people in the desert? All they were doing is studying Torah. Nothing. Idlers, in terms of work, they were doing no labor whatsoever. Totally. Why is that? Why do they have this merit to do no labor? What's the reason why? You know what the reason is? The reason is because since they were totally immersed in Torah, learning Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu, so Kadosh Baruch Hu told them, don't worry, the bread's on me. The meals are on me. Don't worry, everything's on me.
Couldn't you tell me that when I was laboring away in the dental lab?
I think I did.
You think you did?
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, but... Okay, so anyway... Just in case I didn't, I'm telling you now. Okay, so... You understand what I'm talking about? This is the real lesson of the man. The real lesson of the man is to tell the Jewish people, you know what? You sit, do your job. Your job is to learn Torah. I will support you. This is the way it is. This is the way the world works. The world works like that, right? And the truth is that we have many sources for that as well. In the Chazal, in the sages, they give us many, many sources for these things, right? Where do we find? The first basic source, as we said, was the man itself, right? That the Jews had this man. Why did they get it? So the Midrash says the reason why they deserve to get the man is because they accepted the Torah. What does that mean? They accepted to study Torah, especially the oral Torah, right? Not the written Torah, because the written Torah is not so defined. It's not so well explained. But the oral Torah, which is very well defined, right, very well delineated in every way. So therefore, a person who toils in that, studies Torah, Gemara, Rashi, Tosfot, Rashba, Ritva, Tur, Bet Yosef, this, Shulchan Aruch, all these things, right? So that's all he needs to do. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, listen, I created the world for this, to learn Torah. I didn't create the world to go to 47th Street. What do you think? That's what I created the world for? I didn't create the world for that. I didn't need it for that. I'm sorry.
42nd Street, maybe.
Okay, so this is what they meant. This is the whole idea. The man was a testimony to the Jewish people that this is the way it is. So as we said, right, it's same thing as said in Pirkei Avot. Right? This is one of the most basic books of the Jewish people, right? We have in the Torah, which is really a Mishnah, right? It's one of the Mishnayot. Pirkei Avot. What does it say over there? Kolam kabel al atzmo all Torah, right? Ma'avirim imenu all derech eretz ve'ol all Parnassa. Right? What does that mean? That if a person accepts himself the yoke of the Torah, they exempt him from, the obligation to make Parnassa, to make money, to go and get a job. They exempt him from that. Right? And just the opposite it says there also, right? What does that mean? It says that Kol Hamavir Me'alav, right? All Torah. Whoever removes the yoke of Torah from him, then they put on him the yoke of Derech Eretz, right? Right? All Balchut. What does that mean? That now all of a sudden he gets drafted into the army. All of a sudden now he has to work more. They tell him, you got to work longer hours. You're not making enough money. You're not cutting it. You're not making ends meet. You know what I mean? Why all of a sudden the money's lacking? Because they're not learning Torah. They're not accepting the yoke of the Torah. So all of a sudden the money's not there anymore. They have to work more hours. All of a sudden, you got more obligations. The government, you've been audited by the IRS. This and that, all kinds of stuff. Wow, all this. Got parking tickets, moving violations. All the money's going to Uncle Sam here, there, all kinds of stuff. The Israeli government is on your back also. God knows, right? They're also pretty bad, right? They're even worse, right? So what does that mean? All these things. A person, why does the malchut, right? The kingdoms, the governments, why do they chase after him? Because he doesn't take on the obligation of Torah. So now they have permission, from Shamayim to chase after him, take his money, to run after him, to pressure him. You know what I mean? This is the whole thing. So Kadosh Baruch Hu says, this is a rule, you understand? It says in Pirkei Avot like that. Once you take on the Torah, this is removed from you. It's been removed. All derech eretz. You don't have to go to work. All malchut, right? The government won't bother you. They have no power over you, the government. They can't get you. You know what I mean?
Where does it say in the Torah, though, that you should work 8 hours, sleep 8 hours, and study?
Oh, this is good. Okay, good. It's good you reminded me about this. I want to talk about that. David, you're chazak. You're good, man. You're good there. So I want to tell you, right, regarding this idea. Okay, let's answer it now. This question. Why wait? Why put it off? So the truth is, right, that there's also another school of thought, though, right, which is brought down also in the Pirkei Avot itself. It's brought down in Mishnah. What does it say over there? It says over there that what? That a person who studies Torah, right, only, and doesn't do anything else, right, in the end he's going to come to steal. He's going to come to be a thief. Why? Because he won't have money to, so he's going to have to start stealing. Understand? Just the opposite. So what does that mean? According to this, right, the person who does only Torah, he doesn't do melacha, he doesn't do work. It says over there in Pirkei Avot, same book. We're talking about one book, but totally diverging ideas. So it's good you brought it up, right? We have to talk about that. We have to understand how to reconcile these things. So what happens like this, right? So what's the answer? Why do we have these two diverging opinions? So the Rambam, right? You're talking from the Rambam. This is what you're talking about. Right? The Rambam says that a person should study 8 hours a day, and the rest of the time he should sleep and work. You know what I mean? So how is he going? He's going like the second opinion that we just mentioned.
Right.
Understand? We just mentioned that. So the truth is that the Rambam has a long treatise about this. On his commentary on the Mishnah, he talks about this in depth. And over there, right, he states that really a Talmid Chacham, person who's a Torah scholar, should not depend on the community to give him money. He should have his own profession. You know what I mean? We talked about this before.
So Rambam was a Republican, I guess.
Okay. Okay, I got you. So, you understand? So Rambam is telling you like this. And if a person, he says, if Talmid Chacham relies on the community, it's a Chilul Hashem. It's a desecration of the name of God. You know why? Because they say, this guy, he's like, he's pathetic, this guy. Pathetic human being. He can't support himself. He can't take care of himself. We have to be his patrons. We gotta always worry about this guy. That's what the Rambam says. Coming from this Pirkei Avot, like we just mentioned, right? So the question is then, what's going on? What's the balance over here, right? What's the verdict? What's the bottom line? How do we go? Like halakha, what's halakha? So the truth is, I must tell you, right, that on this Rambam that we just mentioned, most of the authorities argue with that.
Really?
Right? Yes, they argue with it. Who is that? The Bet Yosef, the Kesef Mishneh, right? The Marshal, right? And many, many others. The Gaonim also argue with him. What's the reason why they argue with this? They say basically that even though the truth is that he has what to rely on, he has a source. This is not just some kind of a game. But we have two opinions over there. So the more practical one is the first one. What does that mean? The reason that the first one is more practical is because a person who studies Torah, he doesn't really have time, especially in our generations, which are much lower generations. A person can't really become expert in Torah and also have a profession. It just doesn't work out, Either you've got to be here or there. You're not going to become a big scholar if you're also a doctor, or a lawyer. You know what I mean? You can become like a half a rabbi,
But do all Jews required to be big scholars?
That's a very great question. Very good question. Wow. Okay.
They like you.
So we got to talk about that. But
we won't have other professionals. We won't have a doctor in the community.
Oh.
We won't have society will cease to function.
Okay, that's a very good question. But even before we get to that issue, right? We must say first one thing, right? That we need to have also rabbis, right, who are scholars as well. Understand? So the problem is that if we don't have people who are doing this way, devoting their whole life to Torah, there won't be anybody who's a scholar. Understand? So this is going to shortchange the Torah. We're not going to have any Torah. So this is the reason why they say, by the way, that the Rambam's approach is not the correct one, practically speaking. Why? Because most people can't do it this way. The Rambam himself was able to do it, because he was a big genius. You know what I'm saying? He was very blessed.
Would you consider our rabbis here scholars?
Okay.
All right.
Before we answer those questions, let's first answer these questions, right? So I want to tell you, what I want to tell you is like this, that they say like this, right? That if they would have done like the Rambam, the way he says, the Torah would have been forgotten from the Jews.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Nobody would be able to be a scholar.
So 8 hours a day would not be enough for your average Jew.
Right, but the problem is like this, right? If it was 8 hours a day, that would be not so bad. But the problem is, right, that practically speaking, a person who's working 8 hours a day, he can't really study 8 hours a day. You know what I mean? Because he's too, in his world, his cocoon, his material world. Then he wants to watch CNN and Fox, and he wants to, surf on the internet, Facebook and Twitter, until he gets done with all these things. It's already 3 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? Where's the Torah of 8 hours of Torah? You know what I mean? So what happens is that people who are working today full time, they can't really study full time. They can't do both. It's just not possible. It doesn't work out. You understand? So therefore, most of the authorities in those times argued with him. But in our generation, what they say basically is that if you go like the Rambam, you're being a fool. Why is that? Moshe Feinstein says this, right? In the Tshuva. What does that mean? If you want to be a scholar, if you want to be a Torah scholar, right? And you're trying to be a professional as well, you're fooling yourself because it's not going to work. If you think you're going to do that, you got another thing coming. So,
So Moshe Feinstein and the higher authority that don't agree with Rambam,
right.
they believe that these miracles will be that Parnassa and money will be bestowed upon you from God if you actually study the Torah full time.
Right. So now I want to tell you something really funny, right? You know what's the punchline over here? The punchline is, ready for the punchline? The punchline is that the Rambam himself also admitted to this in the end.
Oh,
he also admitted that he was wrong.
Nice.
Okay? I cannot tell you that he admitted that he was wrong, but he changed his mind. Why? Where do we see that, by the way? Because we see, right, in the laws of Shemitah Ve'ovel. You're talking about the laws of farming in Eretz Israel. There's all kinds of laws there involved. So he writes over there just the opposite of what we just said, right? He writes that a person who devotes his life to serving Hashem, that Hashem will support him. That's what he writes. Can you imagine? He writes this himself.
So why is his argument not abolished from there?
What does that mean? What's the question?
If he came to terms with himself and he went with the other side, why is his argument even valid there?
Yeah, it's a very good question what you're asking, right? So I want to explain to you. This is good. You guys are taking me deep into this thing.
Just what? Historical note?
I want to tell you that something amazing about this, right? That the truth is, the Rambam, even though he wrote the other opinion as well at the end, but that opinion didn't erase. He didn't erase that.
Right.
He didn't correct it. So what does that mean? They're both the words of the living God. You understand? There's two sides of the coin over here. You know what I mean? So when does this apply and when does that apply? It depends on the situation, right? As we said, right, that practically speaking, in our world that we live in today, to do like the Rambam is not really a possibility. It's just not possible. You know what I mean? So therefore, since there's no choice, we have to do like this, like the first opinion, which says that what? That just take upon yourself the Torah and Hashem will support you. Even the Rambam agrees with that. So, what does that mean, practically speaking, right? What that means is that there's also another caveat over here, which is what? It says in the Gemara about this. By the way, this machloket goes back also into the Gemara as well, Masechet Brachot, right? Over there, machloket between Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and Rabbi Ishmael. Right? Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says a person should study Torah all day. That's what he says. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, the one who wrote the Zohar, the big rabbi. He said. Rabbi Ishmael says no. You should also do a little work, on the side, make Parnassa also. Brought down also over there, right? Same thing, same argument that we have. So you know what the Gemara says over there? That many people try to do like Rabbi Shimon, to learn all day, but it didn't work for them. Right. But people who try to do like Rabbi Shimon, it worked for them. So what does that mean? There are people who are not zocheh. They don't have the zechut. They don't have the merit to do like Rabbi Shimon. You understand? So it doesn't work for them. They try, but it doesn't go.
Yeah, but
you understand?
Isn't learning Torah all day and night, just as hard, if not harder, than working 8 hours and learning Torah?
Right, but you know what the problem is? The problem is like this. You're absolutely right. But the problem is that a person, has every person has a different kind of a soul. There are certain souls in this world which are on a higher level, and since they come from a higher place, those souls are meant to study Torah only, right? Mm-hmm. Not to do any other physical work.
I see.
They're not meant for that. There are also other people who are more involved in the physical world, and those souls cannot really study all day. Even if they want to, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
you understand? They won't work. They won't make it. They won't cut it. You understand? So really the truth is, right, if you want to go into the depths of this a little bit, the idea is that the truth is for most people, the approach of Rabbi Shimon is probably not a reality. It's not going to work. The approach of Rabbi Ishmael to do a little work also on the side is more of a reality. Something realistic more. You know what I mean? I want to tell you something else amazing here, right? That we say that the Chazal tell us that Chizkiyahu Melech, right? In his generation, what happened was that Chizkiyahu was a very righteous king, and he wanted to bring the Jews to do tshuva, because his father was a wicked man. He caused the Jews to sin very greatly, so he wanted to bring them to do tshuva. So what he did was, what it says in the Gemara? He was a king. This is like a fearful person. You're scared of him. Not like Trump. Nobody's scared of Trump. But this guy, you're really scared of him. He can kill you. So Trump, everybody deranges, right? Derides him, right?
He was more like Putin.
Okay.
The real deal.
Okay, I got you. So what happened was that, you know what they say? He took a sword, Chizkiyahu, right? And he said, he stuck it into the ground like this. And he said, I want everybody to go into the Bet HaMidrash to study Torah, the whole nation. I don't want anybody working. I don't want anybody in the army, no nothing. And he told them like this. He said, whoever leaves the Bet HaMidrash, he'll get this sword right in his belly.
Wow.
He'll be stabbed to death.
Is that what Netanyahu tells all the Israelis?
I wish.
I kill you.
Okay. So I missed the jokes. Okay. So anyway.
No, I mean, he's the leader of Israel now, so,
I kill you.
So, yeah. Well, okay. That's a different discussion, but. Okay, anyway, we got to talk about it some other time. But so the point is, right, that's what he did. So they say in his generation, they were all studying Torah, everybody. They were all scared, like this. If we leave the Bet HaMidrash, if we leave the shul, we're going to get shish kebab.
So authority works. Even in the Bible, authority works.
So I ask you a question, right? So now it's becoming a little bit difficult for us. Why? Because we just said, right, that for most people it doesn't work that way. So then how did it work in that generation? You know what I mean?
Well, I remember you, Rabbi, when you started out, and you went that direction.
Right.
In the beginning, you were telling me how much you suffered, that it was difficult to make the transition, from a regular guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially
at our age.
Sure.
Sure. I remember that.
With the environment, especially.
Yeah.
It's true what you're saying, but I want to tell you, right, that Chizkiyahu, he forced him to do like this. They say, by the way, that it really worked what he did.
Yeah.
They say that, you know what they did? They checked in that generation, the kids were like 5, 6 years old, and every one of them was like totally expert in all the laws of purity and impurity. They knew everything by heart. We're talking about the 6-year-olds.
I see.
You understand? So they became so expert, even the little children were experts.
So the whole Jewish community back then didn't have to work.
Right. So what happened was like this. Not only they were not allowed to, right? Not only they didn't have to, right?
Does it say how they were taken care of?
So good question, right? This is the question.
How they pay the bills?
So this question is dealt with where? It's dealt with in the Gemara, but Rabbi Shimon, right? They asked Rabbi Shimon, right? They said, if we study Torah all day, who's going to do our work? Who's going to plow the field? Who's going to raise the bread? Who's going to bake the bread? Who's going to do this? Who's going to sift? Who's going to this? Right? All this stuff. Right, that's what the Rabbi Shimon said. He said, what? The Goyim will do it for us. You understand? Because really the Goyim are made to serve us. You understand? If we're on the level, spiritually, they're going to come and serve us. Because it's just going to be natural for them. They're going to see how high we are, how high a level we are. So once you get to that level, everybody wants to serve you, The whole creation wants to serve you.
So
whether it's the angels, whether it's the angels, whether it's the whole creation. Even the demons, by the way, they want to serve you. Can you imagine? Even the demons who are supposed to harm people, they come and help you.
Do they get paid?
Because you're the whole combination of creation.
You understand?
Is that the only time that all the Jews reached this level?
Actually, this wasn't the only time, but they say also generation of Rabbi Shimon also was a great generation. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is like this, right? That this generation was Zoche, had the merit to do this. So what does that mean? There are generations where everybody's able to do this. Why is that? Because it seems like there are some generations where the souls are very high level. They come down, Kadosh Baruch Hu brings in very high level souls. So those souls are so pure, they can all do it, But there are some, and by the way, this is the whole idea of the slavery in Mitzrayim. Why did they have to be slaves? Because they were not on a level to study Torah yet. They still were not cleansed. You understand? When a person is not totally cleansed in his neshama, he still needs to work. He still needs to labor. Once he gets totally cleansed in his neshama, right, then he's able to study Torah all day without any interruption.
For many years to come to that point.
Right. That's sometimes it's a lifetime. You need a whole lifetime of that. You come in a Gilgul, come in there. Understand? That's the way it is. Yeah.
Are there scholars or people on a level where they're qualified to explain why what happened to us in Germany?
Yeah, it's very simple. I mean, I don't want to get into this like heavy, big time, but
no, I don't want
right.
to either.
It's very simple,
Because Because you hear a lot of things coming from one rabbi, from another
Right.
rabbi. The Jews deserved it. Then this question about babies.
Well, nothing ever happens if you don't deserve it. You know what I mean? That's the as the Chazal say, right? There's no death without sin. Nobody dies without sinning. So what does that mean?
Ultimately, all die.
Right. But what I'm saying is nobody dies unnaturally without sinning. In an unnatural way. At a young age like that, whatever. There's something wrong there, whatever. But the point is, right, that Chazal say the truth is that these kinds of people who died, it was from Gilgulim. It was probably from what they did in their past lifetimes. You know what I mean? Because there was a lot of people who served idolatry, as we said in the first temple, and they never really got punished for what they did. They died. They lived a long life. They were healthy and wealthy and happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they never got punished. So they had to come back and get punished for that.
Here's the thing. Now, the war in the time of Hitler, all the Jews concentrated on the 6 million people. But the fact is that 80 million people died in that war.
Right, sure, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
80 million people.
Yeah.
Okay? And a lot of people don't even realize this. People were dying after the war because of the war,
sure.
Famine, diseases. So 80 million people died.
Right. Probably more than that, yeah.
Yeah, so, but then again, we know some bad people that live until 100.
Sure, that's the way it is. So what we're saying is like this, right? That getting back to what we're saying regarding the issue of Parnassa, I want to tell you that Zohar Kadosh also weighs into this whole thing, right? It says Zohar Kadosh that a person who's really on a high level, a person who's really a big tzaddik, he should never do anything for Parnassa. He should never do anything for him to make money. That tells you he lacks belief, he lacks faith. You know what I mean? So this kind of thing is brought down, but as we said, right, perhaps this is not for everybody, right, in every generation. There are people who cannot do this. As we said in the Gemara, right, there are people who tried it, but it didn't work for them. You know what I mean? But if a person is really on a high level, if he's really cleansed, so he doesn't need to do anything for his Parnassa.
Do you know people today, as we speak, that qualify on that level?
Yeah, go to Israel. You see over there 50,000 students who are learning Torah, day and night, not working one hour, right, a day.
And who's supporting them there?
Who's supporting them? Generous donors, right? Mostly Syrians. Syrian Jews. Okay. God bless them. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm serious.
I always thought that it was an abomination.
Yeah.
Of every law, not only Torah, but every civilized law, for a person not to work. Mostly a man, because men are supposed to support. Unfortunately, whatever.
Right.
That it was. The old saying. My grandmother used to tell me: only two things are embarrassing: laziness and stealing.
Right. Yes. It's true.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. Why not? So, I want to tell you some quotes, by the way, about this from the Midrashim. You'll understand a little bit better, right? Some amazing things that we find in the Midrashim.
Even Mark went back to work. He's retired, but he still wanted to work. He went back to work.
Very good.
He wants to feel useful.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Okay, that's good. Very good. But so what do we?
Somebody has to support me. I haven't been working for 5 years.
So
Not enough.
You got the hint, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay.
Huh? Go back to what? What I used to do, computers do now. That's why I'm here studying the Torah.
$15 an hour.
Okay. So, I want to tell you something interesting, right? One of the things in Midrashim that nice to quote. You know what it says? It says that there's a pasuk, right? It says that a man is made for to toil. That's what it says in the verse. You know what I mean? So it says the Midrash, every man is made for toil, no exception. You understand? So if he's zocheh, it says if he's merits, he toils in Torah. That's his toil. You understand? If he doesn't merit, he toils in the earth, right? Farming, whatever, physical. Yeah. This is the idea. You understand? Every person has to toil. The only question is, what are you toiling in? You know what I mean? That's the only question.
My father used to always say, because my father never worked a hard day in his life.
Right.
He worked his brain all his life. There are people who work like an animal.
Yes.
Who use their brain to make money.
Yes.
So there are different types of people also.
That's true. That's true.
You know what Shalva's father, you know Shalva's father, David, yeah. You know what he told me many years ago when I was complaining and bitching about making teeth and I hated every second of it.
He still did it.
When he became religious, he once told me that he was the biggest Rasha in the world. He denounced God. This is until he repented, He denounced God. He hated God. He was the biggest sinner.
Wow.
And then he's a big tzaddik now. That's all he does.
Wow.
Is pray and stuff. So he told me, listen to me. God gonna punish you for a while. You're gonna make the teeth. And when he feels that you had enough, he himself is gonna push you out. Do you think that's what happened?
Yeah.
5 years ago? Why did it have to take a heart failure though to happen?
Do that to yourself.
Can that also happen? Things like that?
Looks like it did. I don't know.
We can't argue.
I don't know. After he told me that, I was praying for that day, ever since then.
Okay.
But the way it happened was ridiculous. I mean, the way it
What
happened.
did you lose, David?
No, what happened was, I wanted to do it part-time. But I said to myself, I haven't taken a vacation from this place. I've been laboring away for 30 years. 10, 13 hours a day. God is giving me some kind of a sign, whether it's my heart that failed or whatever. And I don't want to die in this place. I don't want to die here. I want to die at home or, I don't want to die here. So I just got up and walked out.
Wow. You hear that, Mark?
Turned his back on it.
Wow.
That's what happened with me. I don't know whether what he said became, was prophesized or whatever. But I'm just, it's sort of.
I understand you. Looks like you got out of Egypt. You left Egypt. You were emancipated.
On his own free will.
At your age, honestly, you just said things more. You benefit more.
That's good advice.
Well, I've been studying Torah in a way all my life, but
I know.
I've been on the same level for the past 30
Listen to the Levites. Listen to the Levites. Okay. So
I'm more sick than you. People change.
Rabbi, tell them why you're here today.
Why am I here?
You remember who took you to, I'm not bragging,
Yeah.
to Rabbi Lazar's lectures.
Oh, it was you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You and Reuven and
Me and Reuven.
right, yes, sure.
We're hanging out one day on Austin Street, and David, what are you doing these days? Oh, me and Reuben go every Thursdays. It was Thursday night. So, you never told me, he goes to me. So he goes, I need some spiritual uplifting in my life. And he came with us, and the next thing I know, then I see him with a kippah. You remember, you started getting more.
Yeah, looks. Yeah, exactly. He's saying good, but the truth is that you got good dividends from this whole thing. You know what I mean? Because
40 years
the truth is, I got a lot of mileage out of this rabbi. I learned a lot of things from him. He was an interesting rabbi.
From Rabbi Lazar?
Yeah.
Oh, great guy.
He's still my friend.
He's a great guy.
He's still my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder
He's in Israel now.
if he remembers us. I mean,
I met him in Israel. I spoke to him. I met him. Yeah.
he's in Israel?
He's in Israel. He lives in
Oh,
Israel.
okay.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back to what we said, right? That there's also another interesting thing.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
wherever you learn with whatnot, you have history from previous life.
I'm sorry.
Like, let's say you learn with something.
It's possible. You never know. I mean, we don't know these things. We don't have Arizal to tell us all these things. So we do the best we can according to, there may be some connections. You never know.
Right, okay.
Right. So as we said, Rabotai, that all these things weighed in. We have the pros and cons, whatever. But the bottom line is, right, that even the Rambam admits, right, the most rational of them, the one who was the most rational, down to earth rabbi, right? And according to many, he was the greatest rabbi, right? He was the greatest of the great. So even he admits, right, that when a person takes on the yoke of the Torah, Hashem will support him. Even he admits that. You know what I mean? So.
Could that mean that a person works but also makes money much easier than most?
No, that means he's not working at all. He's working for Hashem. You got one boss. He's the boss. That's it.
Even though the other rebuttal worked for him.
Yeah, it worked for him. But I must tell you that even though apparently you may think it worked the truth is that if you look at the history of the Rambam, his life, his biography, it seems like it didn't work very well for him. Because he was suffering very greatly. Just like you suffered, he was also suffering. You're having something in common with the Rambam? You want me to tell you what you have in common with him? Just like you were sick there sitting in that lab, you know what I mean? He was also sick like that. What does that mean? I'll tell you a story and you'll understand, right? The Rambam learned most of his Torah, acquired it when he was young.
How long
At that
did he
time,
live?
he lived a good old age, Baruch Hashem. Yeah. When he was young, he acquired most of his Torah at that time. What does that mean? That his brother was a businessman and he was supporting him, So he was able to sit and learn Torah. Baruch Hashem. With undisturbed, uninterrupted. So what happened was that his brother then, whatever, he got sick, he died, something like that, whatever, he wasn't able to make money anymore. Whatever. So the Rambam had to now fend for himself, So that's why he became a doctor. That's the reason why. So what happened was that at the time, there was a certain time in his life where he was in Egypt. He went to Egypt, because the Sultan over there of Egypt, the king of Egypt, made him the family doctor. You know what I mean? What does it mean to be the family doctor of a Sultan? You know what that means? You're checking all time VD, right? Venereal diseases. Because he's got all his, concubines and, this. Yeah, this is what you're doing, for VD, checking VD. Yeah, that's what you're doing. This is what he was doing, you understand? This is what he was doing.
Because we know we have the Talmud Nidah, we know how these things work.
Right, but that's what he was doing. Can you imagine?
But one thing I remember,
yeah.
Going back to this, you touched upon this when I started working in the lab, because I met you on Yellowstone once, and he's coming, with all the Torahs and everything, and it's like 100-something degrees, and he doesn't have a sweater on, and I'm with a T-shirt, and you said to me, David, where's your tzitzit? You criticized me. I said, Rabbi, it's hot. I said, explain one thing to me. You're wearing a wool jacket, you have tzitzit, you have a shirt, you have this, and you're not. So he started, with the preaching, and when I complained to him about the work, you know what he said to me? Don't you understand? Every profession is a disease and suffering. He goes, when you don't study Torah, that's what you get.
Now listen to me what I'm telling you, right? So what happened was like this. The Rambam was working for the Sultan. This was his morning job. He used to go there in the morning. So the morning was totally absorbed with this. Then what happened was in the afternoon, he had also a private practice, private office he used to have. So he had to travel back to his office, which was also a big drive. In those days there were donkeys, they weren't driving. So what happened was that he had to go long distance on his donkey and go to his practice, and he would take patients, many patients every day. So what happened was that they said that after this day of labor that he used to have, he was so tired he used to just go home and go to bed, straight to bed. He had barely time to eat. He didn't have time to eat. Can you imagine? His breakfast was like 5 minutes. If he was lucky, he would have 5 minutes to eat. He didn't have time to eat or to pray also. He was praying when he was riding on his donkey. Can you imagine? When he was riding from one job to another, that was his prayer time. So what happened was, right, that one scholar hears about the Rambam, what a great scholar he is, whatever. So he sends him a letter, I want to come and study with you, I want to learn Choshed Mishpat with you, whatever. So, you know what he answered him? You know what his answer was? He says, don't bother. He says, don't bother wasting your time. He says, you think I have time to study Torah? All I do all day is work. In the morning I'm over here. In the morning, afternoon I'm over here. In the night I'm sleeping. I have no time for anything. I have no time for myself even to study. So he says, the only time I study is on Shabbat. You understand? This is what the Rambam. So now you get the point, right? Maybe you understand now why he admitted that what he said at first, he changed his mind. You know what I mean? Because he saw himself that this kind of life was not a nice life to live. Like that. Once you get totally absorbed.
Whose interpretation of this came first? The people that disagree with the Rambam, or Rambam?
Well, we got both of these on Har Sinai. You know what I mean? These opinions. All the Torah came from Har Sinai. They're both true.
Yeah.
But you have to understand. So even the Rambam understood that in the end, HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed him. He said, you think, that a scholar is making a chilul Hashem by learning all day? I'll show you what it means to work all day. And then you'll see yourself. So he put him in a situation like that. You understand? To show him, probably, I'm guessing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu would want to show him. Maybe you were a little bit harsh on what you said. So in the end, he changed his mind about that. He reversed. So the Rambam couldn't even take a student to study with him, because he was too busy working. Can you imagine? This was the Rambam. So can you imagine now if we were going to do like that? Look at the doctors today, right, who are working like that, non-stop to make money. Like my uncle, was, you remember my uncle?
Sure.
He was like, he had one place in Brooklyn and one place in Queens. He had something in Manhattan, this, blah, 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 then jumping here, jumping there. He made a lot of millions. But what kind of life did he have, All work and no play, That's pretty much, I guess you can sum it up. So, now can you imagine my uncle becoming a Rambam today? He's not going to become a Rambam. Nobody's going to become a Rambam like that. If you're working all day like that, toiling all day, nobody's going to become a Rambam today. Rambam was a unique case, you understand? I'm trying to tell you, right, is that today it's not going to work this kind of thing. So therefore, Rabbi, we see from there.
Professionals, lawyers, whatever, doctors, they come from work, they go to public time sometimes.
Yes.
With study groups, right?
But you think they're going to become real scholars, these people? No, they just think they're getting something from there, something. They're getting a little bit, the taste of something,
And Mark now, at his
right?
Which by the way, you told me.
Yeah.
You told me that the Torah says that it's never too late to start, even if you're 70, right?
Sure, you have to start any time you can. You have to learn until the day that you're still here, right?
The Torah says it's never too late.
So, Rabbi, what do we see from here? That the bottom line is, right, that Kadosh Baruch Hu with the man taught us this lesson, right? The lesson was, listen, I can give you everything you need. Don't worry about that. If you take upon yourself the yoke of the Torah, I'll give you everything you need.
It's, what it is? It's actually logical. If you cut out all the miracles, if you don't want to believe it from that direction, the hierarchy in history has always been supported by the laborers.
Sure, that's the way it is, yes.
So if you raise yourself to that level, and the rest of society sees that you're so close to God, I guess they're obligated to support you.
Well, I want to tell you, right, that
you can also become a partner in Torah.
Yes, that's also true. Yes, very true.
Work with dog.
Right.
If you're smart, God blesses you. Make a lot of money, support the scholars, and you also have a portion in there.
Absolutely, right. That's what the business people do, right? They take on this thing. That's for sure, right? What we're saying. For a person.
No, it's serious. They're worth $500 million each.
We're talking
Israel. They support the scholars. They also have a share in that. What do you think? Why are you going to?
Listen, if you're worth billions, then you should, support.
If you're worth $10 million, you come and you give, let's say, $1 million, $500,000 a year. You give because you make $2 3 million a year. You give.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
So what are you going to do with the money? Put great with it? Come on.
But the truth is, right, that besides supporting the Torah, which is a different issue altogether, right? We can talk about that too. But a person can also take on the Torah upon himself as well. There's an interesting story brought down about this. They say, right, that the Chafetz Chaim, one day, they came to him, some boys, Russian boys, Jewish Russians. He was in Russia. He was living in Russia, So they came to him and they said, it doesn't say in Pirkei Avot that a person who takes upon himself the yoke of Torah, they removed all Malchut, all Derech Eretz from him. Right? They don't. The kingdom doesn't bother him. There's no derech eretz. There's no work. So they said, Rabbi, but we just got drafted into the Russian army. We were learning yeshiva, and the Russian army came and drafted us. How did that happen? If that's the case. You understand? This was the question that they had. So you know what the Chafetz Chaim answered them? He told them, it says you're right, but it says when the Pirkei Avot tells you to take on the Torah, it means you take it on 100%. Then they cannot touch you 0%. But if you take it on only 50%, that 50% they can touch you. Understand? They can touch you to the extent that you didn't take it on. That point that they can get that point. You know what I mean? That place they can catch. But if you took it on totally, so they can't catch you anywhere. You understand? That's by the way, it's a very big truth that Rabbi Chafetz Chaim told them. Right?
Are you saying that according to the Torah, if all those millions of Jews were all holy and all, not necessarily scholars, but they devoted their time to the Torah instead of wheeling and dealing or whatever they did in Germany, whatever Hitler accused them of. I don't know what he accused them of.
Simulation.
He accused them of taking over Germany. I don't know. I think it was all jealousy, intimidation, because I think that the world has kicked out Jews from all over the world all their life, killed them, or sold them out, or abused them, because they don't want, talented and smarter people living next to them.
Jealousy.
If you ask me.
Yes.
That's what I see. So you think that all this in Germany could have been avoided?
I want to tell you also another thing, right, which is interesting, that regarding what it says in the Mishnah, there's also another Mishnah, Masechet Kedushin. The last Mishnah, Masechet Kedushin, also talks about this topic. The question is over there like this, right? When you raise your child, right? You know that there's a mitzvah, by the way, that every child you raise, you should teach him a profession, some kind of a trade, so he can make money. Otherwise, the kid is going to have to come to steal, maybe. You know what I mean? You know, become a street punk. You know, selling drugs, God knows what, whatever, right? Kinds of things like this, right? So, in order to avoid these problems, the Torah tells us you have to teach your child a profession. So, the Mishnah asks over there, what kind of professions are a person teach to a child? Doctor, lawyer, accountant, gemology. What should you teach him, right? Real estate. What should you teach him? So the Mishnah says, right, two things. You should teach him a trade which is easy and clean. Why? What's the reason why? Because if you get into something which is dirty and filthy and hard, so you're gonna have to, work like a madman, to labor on that. You know what I mean? So you're just gonna suffer. So what does that mean? The Mishnah says over there, right, that the amount of parnassa you make anyway doesn't depend on that, what profession you have. It depends on your mazal, depends on, things from above. So whatever profession you choose, it's not going to change your mazal. You know what I mean? So might as well take something which is easy and clean. Why take something difficult? For what? You think you're going to make more money like that? It's not true. So it says the Mishnah, teach your child something which is easy and clean. Not too hard, not too involved, not too crazy, not too demanding. You know what I mean? Why? For what? If he has to study 8 weeks, why should he have to go study for 8 years? For what? If he's going to make the same money anyway. You know what I mean? That's what the Mishnah says. Okay, fine. So then comes, right, says other rabbis in that Mishnah. Also another thing, right? One of the rabbis says something really powerful. He says, you know what? He says, really the truth is, if you look at the animals, right, the animal kingdom, do any of them like labor for their parnassa? Are they doctors? Are they lawyers? Are they accountants? These people, these animals, they're not, right? So how do they make their living? So he says Hashem provides for them. He gives them. He puts it in front of their face so they can go catch something, and eat. So he says, if that's the case, why do we humans have to get a profession? If the animals don't need to get a profession, why do we have to get a profession? Good question, no? We're supposed to be above them, no? We're supposed to be superior to the animals. So you know what the answer is, right? It says the answer is that because I made myself crooked by sinning. Since I sinned, I had to get a profession. But the truth is, if I was clean, I wouldn't need a profession. Because the animals don't need a profession. I should need a profession. You understand? Right, but that's true. But a person can rise above that, you should know. There's ways to rise above that. It's a long discussion, but, it's a long discussion, this thing. But anyway, you know what? The last opinion is in the Mishnah. Comes Rabbi Nehorai, right? And says, the only thing I teach my children is Torah. I don't teach them any profession. I don't teach them any skills. Only Torah. Why is that? Because the Torah provides, one profession only provides for you the time that you're working. When you stop working, all of a sudden, right, there's no money coming in. Right? When it comes to Torah, it provides for you all your life. You get money from there, you get parnassa from there all your life. And even if when you retire, you still are getting parnassa from there. You understand?
That's a good one.
Right? So therefore, it says Rabbi Nehorai, right? The only thing I teach my children is Torah. Because it gives them, in this world, it gives them a next world. By the way, there's a pasuk about that, right? It says regarding the Torah, right? Osher v'chabod bismola, uv'yamina orich yamim, right? Arichut yamim. So what does that mean? That when a person studies Torah, he gets everything. He gets wealth, he gets honor, and he gets also long life. He gets everything. So we see from there, by the way, that a person doesn't really need to do anything else except study Torah. The Torah is the best parnassa that there is. It's the best profession that there is. So I ask you a question, right? If that's the case, we're going to end up with here, right? We can go all night, but we got to finish sometime. Trump, we got to see Trump, right? So, right, he's already done probably. Okay, so the thing is like this, right? That if that's the case, right? Why do we see all the people who are studying Torah, they're all poor? I mean, most of them are poor, The students who are studying Torah, they don't have money. They're living very meager. They don't have. Some of them don't have a car. Some of them don't have a minivan.
Well,
They don't have a. They don't have any of these things.
You're not guaranteed a lavish life.
Oh, good.
The idea that you're surviving already should be.
Yeah, okay, I got you. That's good, very good. What you're saying is good. But you know what? I have a problem. One problem is like this, right? That I just told you, right? Osher vechavod bismola. Right? What does that mean? You get wealth. So where's the wealth? Well, this is the wealth. You know?
I hope he doesn't hear, watch your video.
I don't think he'll be offended. Okay, so anyway, right? So what's the story with that? Right? Well, I'm sorry. What do you say, right? Next world, but we're not talking about next world. We're talking about this world, right? We're not talking about Gilgulim and this. That. When we say right, Osher v'Chavod, we're talking about this world.
The cup has to overflow. It takes time.
So then, what's the story? So the story is like this over time. That it says, by the way, it teaches us this also. The Midrash. The Midrash explains that a person who's studying Torah when he starts out, even though his Parnassa his bazar actually may be very good, he's going to make a lot of money in the end. He's going to become rich, just like Hashem promised him. So then, why is he poor now? Because you can't acquire the Torah when you're rich. You can't. You need. You see, the situation has to be that you're struggling, you're not really doing so well, because it says that in the Torah, right? That what? How should a person acquire Torah? Drink water, eat stale bread, don't be like, very spoiled, go to restaurants all the time, Hapisga, this, Chosen Gardens. You don't need all these things, just eat normal, open the fridge, whatever you got in there, take it out and, nibble on it, whatever. What's the way to go these fancy restaurants all the time, all these kinds of things. See, it's not conducive to acquiring Torah, having this kind of life of luxury. You can't have two shulchanot, two tables, the table of wealth and the table of Torah at the same time. So if that's the case, right, it's not conducive to acquiring Torah to have wealth. Fine. So then, when will the wealth come? If that's the case, right? Once a person has really acquired the Torah, meaning what? That he went many years and he studied, right, without interruption. So then what happens is that Kadosh Baruch Hu gives him in the end everything for free. No work, no labor, no nothing. Just like one big, just like this, It says, Birkat Hashem ta'ish tashir. What really makes you wealthy is Hashem just gives you a blessing. He blesses you, you get wealthy right away. It's not, the Midrash says, right, that traveling from country to country, that's not what gives you wealth. Going to Hong Kong, going to Shanghai, this and that, trading with the Chinese, trading with these people, it's not what gives you wealth. And that wealth also, not only that doesn't give you wealth, the real wealth comes from Torah, but it comes at the end. It comes when you already acquire the Torah, and now you're ready to give over Torah to other people. You're ready to become, like a teacher, like a leader. Once you're ready to become that kind of position, so Kadosh Baruch Hu gives you that. Until then, when you're in the acquisition stage, you have to sweat it a little bit. You gotta rough it. You gotta rough it, man. That's the way it is. If you rough it, if you get through that stage, eventually it'll come. It's a promise,
Or you can be Levi Levi. One of those.
They support Torah.
Huh?
When you support Torah, you become rich.
So, what I tell you is like this, right? That the Midrash says something even stronger than that. I'm keeping you for a long time, but it's actually very important to understand this. The Midrash says that not only does the real wealth come from Torah, but the wealth that you acquire from, business and trading, hustling business, hustling money. I went over there, I traded over here, I did this. That wealth, says the Midrash, doesn't last either. It doesn't last. It doesn't have a lasting power. It comes and goes. You understand?
Call from +15169.
It doesn't have power. It doesn't have lasting power. When you get Parnassa from something which is not Torah related, just doing trading and business, it can be here today, tomorrow it's gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't last. But when you get blessing from Hashem, because you study Torah, you got the blessing from Torah, that wealth lasts always. Never goes away. You know why? Because when the blessing comes from Hashem, that blessing never goes away, never fades away. But the blessing comes from grabbing, right? It doesn't stay because it's not real. It's not tangible. It's something not tangible. They bring this as an example, by the way. They say there was two wealthy people in the world. Two like extremely wealthy people. We're talking about in history. One of them was a Jew, and one of them was a goy. You know who they were? The Jew was Korach, right? The Korach was a very wealthy man, right? And also there was Haman, right? Haman was also very wealthy, right? As it says, right? So why does it bring these two people? What's the idea? So trying to tell you the Midrash that these two, because they got the money from grabbing and trading, and this and that and hustling, their wealth didn't last. In the end, they lost everything. These people, understand? But only the wealth that comes from Torah really lasts. But the wealth that comes from grabbing and trading and this and that doesn't last. Goes, comes. By the way, people tell you this, you should know. From experience, right? They tell you, the more money you make, all of a sudden, the more money is also going out. You're spending also more. It's like, you never really feel like, like you got anything. Even though you're making like millions, but you're also spending millions. It's not really amounting to anything. You're living a higher life, you're living a higher life standard of life, but you don't really have anything. The reason is because that money is not coming from a good place. It's not coming from a good blessing. It's not coming from a stable blessing. So a stable blessing is really for what? When the person gets money from Hashem. Birkat Hashem mitashir. V'lo tavi etzev ima. That's the end of the pasuk, the end of the verse. You know what that means? That kind of blessing that comes from Hashem, the Parnassa comes from Hashem, that will not bring any sadness. What does that mean? There will be no sadness of working, of laboring, of toiling. There's no sadness like that when it comes from Hashem. It all comes for free. Where do we see this? Rabbi Akiva, right? As it says in Masechet Yevamot, in the Gemara over there, that Rabbi Akiva became wealthy when he just got married with Rachel, right? He was poor. They didn't have a bed to sleep on, But when he became wealthy, 6 ways he got wealthy, all miraculous ways. He didn't work. One day in his life he didn't work, Rabbi Akiva, once he started learning Torah. All the ways were miraculous. The Gemara describes what happened, all kinds of miracles, right? Everything was like miraculous. He got wealth from here. All of a sudden it came to him. When was that? After he learned for 24 years in poverty. Right? Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him everything for free. Understand? No labor, no nothing. So the truth is, right, I want to tell you that there was actually a case where I heard from somebody that there was a certain guy who became a Baal Tshuva. And all of a sudden, he got this idea, like, let me just go and study Torah all day. Israeli guy. He's married already. Becomes a Baal Tshuva. So he comes to Morain Rabbeinu Maran Abba Shalom, Rav Ovadia. He comes to him, and he tells him, he says, a rabbi says, I became a Baal Tshuva, Baruch Hashem, I became religious. Now I want to sit and learn Torah all day. He says, what do you say about that? So the rabbi told him, he said, not a good idea for you. Yeah, take it easy for you. Chill out. Yeah. That's what I told him, right? And you know the story. Okay, interesting. So the point is like this, right? That actually this guy, why did the rabbi tell him like that?
But didn't he tell him, go home, relax, take it easy, and when you come to your senses, then come back to it?
So I don't know, maybe something like that. I don't remember all the details, but the point is, right, that I was wondering myself. I said to myself, why did the rabbi tell people? Because he used to tell people all the time, go learn, study Torah all day, go to yeshiva. So the truth is, the rabbi had a meter. He had a sense. When he would read you, he would look at you, with those eyes, size you up. He already knew what you were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So people like that, he had Ruach HaKodesh, Moreno Rabbi. He was Baal Ruach HaKodesh. For sure, there's no question about it. Divine inspiration he had. So what does that mean? That he knew who needed to be there, he knew to be in the field, who needed to be in the yeshiva. He knew very exactly well everybody. He knew what they're, according to their neshama, according to their soul.
When I went for my job interview with the Israeli guy, the first thing he asked me, he needed somebody to teach him, so one day he could take it easy.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. But the first thing he asked me was, David, who sent you to this profession? So I said, Zohar, you're going to laugh, but my grandmother. I see. So I said, why are you asking? He goes, how do you know it's for you? I said, I went to Magna Technical School for 12 months. I said, what is it? He goes, there's plenty of other things. I said, you don't want to hire me? He goes, it's not about that. He goes, I just want you to know that you're going to eat shit for the rest of your life.
Okay, I got the idea. So, you understand what I'm saying? So, Rabbi, what I want to tell you
He
is,
used to visit me, him and my kids.
I want to tell you is, Rabbi, that a person, can try a lot of things in his life. He can try this, he can try that. Eventually, he'll fall into his regime.
Wherever he
Right.
belongs.
You're exactly. He will wind up where he has to be. Of course, he has to try to his best to maximize Torah as much as possible. You know what I mean? But if it's not going to work for him, it's not going to work. But the bottom line is, Rabbatai, that a person who really wants to take on the Torah, right? The Rambam says, halacha, he says, right? Halacha, that a person is allowed to do it. And he says that Hashem will support him, right? But he doesn't say he's going to make him rich right away, right? No, he says he'll give him enough that he can live on. That's the
Doing
idea.
it full time.
Yeah.
Can you go over supporting the Torah really quickly?
I'm sorry?
A small part, supporting it.
What about this morning? We need a different lecture for that. We got to talk about a different lecture. Bezat Hashem. There's a lot to say about that. Bezat Hashem. One of these days we're going to get into that too. God bless you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
State of the Union is getting ready for you, right?
No, I watched the rerun, so I don't care. I'm more relaxed watching the rerun. Because